Good morning, this is Father John. Somebody asked me to do a video on how I became a Catholic priest, or what was my vocation, how God called me to be a Catholic priest. I've already made a video on how I became a Catholic, so if you haven't watched that yet, it'd probably be good to watch first so you found out how I got to become a Catholic from being a Methodist. I have no complaints against my Methodist experience. My only question is, why can't Catholics sing as good as Methodists can? So, part of the story is that I had become a Catholic, and then I was involved in a fraternity. I had kind of sloughed off in junior college and didn't do well. And there was a point in my life where I'd been fired from a fairly good job with a finance company, and I was working three jobs. I was working in a bookstore at Cerritos College, sweeping the floor and unloading trucks. I was also working part-time in the evenings at a welding school, and I was working part-time on the weekends in a men's tailor shop. I was cleaning the shop while the owner was next door having lunch. And, well, we won't get into all what he was doing, but I was in there cleaning the store. I went away with my fraternity brothers for Easter week 1974, which was the week leading up to Easter, and I didn't think. I was not thinking. I got time off from my works, my jobs, and I got in the car with a buddy Bob, and we headed towards the Colorado River. I didn't even think to bring any extra clothes, any food, or any money. Ignorance. Absolute thoughtlessness. We drove out to the Colorado River to a little place called Sundance Beach, which is still there, and I've got a story about Sundance Beach as well. But at Sundance Beach, I mooched off of sorority girls for their food. I slept in the dirt next to my buddy's tent, another guy. I did a lot of alcohol. I smoked some marijuana, which I never did like very much. I tried it and I didn't like it very much, but I did. I smoked marijuana. And I had an experience in the evening where I went just walking, drunk, and I don't remember if I was under the influence of anything else, but then I couldn't find my way back to where our campsite was. I was lost, and I was too drunk to find it. The last thing I remember is walking around wondering where I was. The next morning I woke up half in the Colorado River and the sun beating down on me, and I thought to myself, this is just insane. This is just insane. What am I doing? Well, we left on Friday to come back, and I'm thinking in the car on the way home with Bob, what an absolute idiot I am. That I was either going to have to stop this way of life, or I was going to go into some kind of mental institution, or maybe get arrested, and I didn't know what to do. I got back to my parents' house and stayed the night and woke up the next morning and thought, you know what? I haven't been to Mass in a long time. Maybe I'll go to Mass tomorrow. I didn't even realize what day it was in the church calendar. And I told my mom I was thinking about going to church the next day, and she said, well, it's Easter tomorrow, you know. I went, oh, is it? And she says, yes. Well, she wasn't a Catholic yet, so she was probably going to go to a Methodist church. I don't remember. But I asked a buddy of mine, Chuck, who was in the fraternity too, he was a Catholic, if I could have a ride to church. And he said, sure. And he came up and picked me up. His little sister was with him, and we went over to Our Lady of Perpetual Help Church in Downey, which is the parish just north of mine. We walked in, and of course we sat in the back row because I was a little embarrassed. I hadn't been to church for a long time. And before Mass started, I was sitting there. Maybe I was kneeling, praying. I don't remember. But I saw the priest at the back of the church, and I knew Mass was about to start. So we all stood up, and as the priest entered the church and came down the center aisle, I had this tremendous urge to follow him up the center aisle. And I thought to myself, you're going crazy. You're nuts. And I listened to what was going on in Mass, and I'm thinking to myself, it scared me. I thought, I've got a mental problem. I was just at the Colorado River. It's Easter Sunday morning, and I'm thinking I should follow the priest up the center aisle. I thought that was nuts. So I got home on Sunday, and I decided to call the guy who had stood up for me for my baptism and acceptance into the church, my first Holy Communion. And Tom said, well, why don't you come over and have dinner with us? We're having dinner, I think it was maybe that night or maybe Monday or Tuesday of that week. I don't remember. He and his wife, and he had some children, and I went over to their house and I knocked at the door, and he opened the door and he said, I smell incense. And I said, what are you talking about? And he says, I've always known you were going to be a priest. And I said, no, I have no interest in being a priest. And he said, come on in, we'll eat. We had dinner with his wife and kids, and then his wife and kids went off to another room, and we sat down in the living room and talked for a while. And he said, well, I want you to do a couple of things. I want you to go see Monsignor Galderon at St. Anthony's in Long Beach, California. And I said, I don't even know who he is. And he said, well, he's the pastor there. Go see him and talk to him about this. But also, I want you to think about making a retreat. And I said, what's that? And he said, well, ask Monsignor Galderon. So I called Monsignor Galderon a few days later and went and saw him. And I don't remember what he looked like. It was terrible. I was just kind of floating through my life. But I do remember sitting down with him and telling him what I had experienced. And he said, I want you to call the Archdiocese and talk to the vocations director. And he said, I want you to go on a retreat. And he said, well, Tom Hansen told me the same thing. And he gave me some literature about a place called Mater de la Rosa Retreat House up in Sierra Madre, California. So I called the Archdiocese and asked for the vocations department. And the priest that answered said, well, this is my last day on the job. I want you to talk to the new guy. So he ended the phone, and it was the same priest, the same young priest, Father Gary Bowler, who said, hi, this is Father Bowler. How can I help you? And I said, do you remember me? You brought me into the church a few years ago. John Higgins. He said, I'm really sorry, I don't remember you. I was over self-important. Well, I talked to him and made an appointment, and then I told him I was going to go up to Mater de la Rosa Retreat House, and I got up there, and I was going to make a 3-day retreat. I think it was starting Friday afternoon, ending Sunday evening, and they assigned spiritual directors to each person on the retreat, and my spiritual director was a Passionist priest named Father Higgins. Think about that. What coincidence. Well, maybe it wasn't really a coincidence. I don't remember what the retreat was about, but I just remember feeling this tremendous love and sense of peace while I was there. I went to see Monsignor Baller, or then he was Father Baller, and he invited me to go up to the seminary. He took me up to the seminary for Mass and a little visit, and I don't know what happened, but I just said, this is where I belong. This is where I belong. And so I said, I really am going to pray about this, and I think I'm probably going to decide to go to the seminary. So I went to talk to the pastor of my parish, Monsignor Walsh, at Our Lady of Perpetual Help Church. And he said, well, if you're going to go to the seminary, let me know, and I'll pay your tuition for you. Amazed. Well, I didn't have much money, but I went on to the seminary. I had a great first roommate, Larry Estrada, who gave me a handmade cassock that fit me, because I had a cheap little cassock that was tearing apart. My call to the priesthood didn't stop there. It went on through my life in the seminary. So I'll make another video about that. God bless you. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you've enjoyed this talk about my call to the priesthood, which, in Karen Carpenter's words and her brother's words, had only just begun. By the way, I went to high school with Karen Carpenter. I have a picture to prove it. God bless you. I'll make another video in a few minutes, or maybe in an hour or two, on the rest of the story.